Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm sitting down with the founder and CEO of Happy Life Labs and business strategist for Tony Robbins, Brett Harmeling. Brett, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Michael. Thanks for having me and grateful to be here.
Absolutely. For those who don't know you, who is Brett?
I grew up on a farm and now have my own family here in Houston, Texas. And so along the journey, I've built, scaled, and exited multiple companies. My primary focus is in the wellness space, and that's derived from healing some of my own injuries and wounds and trauma. And so now I take those tools, resources, and sciences and help other people elevate and live their best life. And so my company's called Happy Life Labs because if you're not happy, then what's the point?
Right on. Well, I know you've been in the biohacking scene for a decade or about.
I would say I specifically got into it officially like in 2013.
Okay. So more than a
Yeah.
decade. And how's your view of biohacking changed over that time?
So, it used to be really like bespoke, high-end equipment and tools to like bring people closer to technology, like the intersection of science and technology, just imagine that. And so it used to be like really hush hush because, people would die or get canceled if they started talking about things that could actually heal things without a big pharma and traditional medicine. And it was a very hush hush world for a while, especially when I started. And then it started opening up and expanding. And then it turned into like almost like a commodity. You can use red light specifically. There's like literally 100 companies or saunas. There's hundreds of companies, cold plunges. You see the market shift, and then the demand happens, and then lots of companies start, and then they build big, and then they can't support their growth, and then they fail or get sold. It's really evolved over the years, and now it's gone way full swing recently into experiential wellness. So wellness based on experiences and actually going after feeling versus just using a tool. And so, yeah, we had just come out of a huge phase of the testing world. And now, like, testing is readily available almost anywhere. So there's business models out there that support whatever level of testing you want to do. And then from whatever you test, then you can take action on. So test, don't guess. I definitely believe in that. And then apply it to your life, and you'll see your life amplify in ways you can never even imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to see the evolution over the last, I'd say 15 years. When I started at the National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health, there was an institute that's been renamed, or it was a center, the Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. And at the time, it was like a lot of the same stuff that's now very embraced, right? But it was like the most woo woo, like meditation and, Eastern medicine kinds of things. And now, we're seeing a full swing and fully embracing, especially through at the political level, at the public health level, the Maha movement and, a lot of things that it's like that's front and center. And we're kind of skewing, more of the conventional, evidence-based science, backed kinds of things. What do you see from your perspective? I mean, you participated in some of this in a variety of different ways. Do you see where we are continuing for, a while, or will we see the pendulum swing back? I mean, I think the from my perspective, coming from the kind of the research community and the NIH science community, it's making space for few more charlatans than, because we're moving into realms where we're talking about quantum healing and things that I think there's validity at the core, but there's also people who are taking, as with data and other things, like taking it in a way that they're going to make a quick buck, but ultimately at the core of it, there's some snake oil unctuous, feeling around it. And, I'm all for trusting your intuition and things, but also, as you said, testing, having the data so we know what we're working with, we can actually measure it versus like the placebo effect and these kinds of things. There's a lot there, but I love your perspective on all of this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's really taking, for those that are confused what we're talking about and that are kind of new to the game, it's really just taking radical control of your own health. And the best way to do that is to test. And then, thank God for AI in this world because, all those numbers that would mean nothing to you, now you can plug it into an AI a tool, and then you can get really actionable insight about things and patterns about how to optimize your health. And so there's no better, like, ultimately, I believe God is the ultimate that, determines when you're going to leave, but also we have tools readily available to help us enhance our experience of life and then also still enjoy enjoy it, right? We live in such a hyper connected, busy world that I would say most people come to me like, "What do I need?" I'm like, "You need less." Almost like 100% of people, you need less. We need to call, we need to go back, we need to hit pause, we need to pump the brakes, we need to like take that huddle and really get centered and grounded in what is important to us because our phones and technology, and there's just so much buzz in the world, and so it is navigating it. And that's why my company has been very on a very upward trend and quite successful, to be honest. And because people know that if it's in my portfolio, which is about 100 companies now, that you can trust that the companies inside of my portfolio implicitly because our team has vetted and verified that those companies, everything from supply to their employment practices, how they treat their own people, their warranties, their customer support, like all the variables and aspects, we go through super due diligence as if we were going to invest in the company. And some of them we have invested in. And so we bring these boldly in front of like the world's top doctors, and we're building protocols for those doctors to then give to their patients. And yeah, and then what's version 7.0 of Your Life, because it's been so many different versions of the company, is we'll be coming out with and developing like a super integrated interface where you'll be able to say, I'm looking for better sleep or energy or focus or libido or whatever you name your thing. And then it'll actually pull from all of our partners and give you like a stack that's customized to you. And so it'll be like the sexiest, simplest, most trusted e-commerce for health and wellness products. And I'm sharing this because I don't know how long it's going to take to get this released but it's not out yet. So it should be an NDA here, but it'll be out very soon. And we're excited about it. And just because we want to bring exposure to the world's best products, because like Michael was saying, like there's like vultures in the space and snake oil and stuff that really doesn't work. And then you get a bad taste in your mouth when you buy something that's kind of like doesn't really work. And so we're here to be truth tellers, high integrity forces for good to bring nature into your life so you can, experience life at its fullest.
I love it. It's really, really necessary. I think I was thinking two things when you were talking about that. The one is a lot of times people ask like, "How do I optimize for this?" Right? And we forget the question like, "What and why?" Like, what should I be doing? Not just the how, but like what, and then why do you want to optimize for that? And I was talking with someone recently about blood work and a variety of tests, and they were on a call with someone who was taking like 20 supplements. And back to your like probably less is more in this case, but this is probably also someone who would say, no, I'm not going to take that medication, right? Which we generally know through randomized control trials and things what the side effects of that medication are, in at least in some populations. And as soon as you start stacking all these things, which makes a platform like you're talking about building so important, that you're not going to combine things that are going to be deleterious in any way, right? They're going to be compounding on each other in a positive way, not canceling each other out or worse, right? But who the hell knows what's happening in your body when like so many people who are on multiple medications, they take one and then it has a side effect, and then they take another, the second one to address the side effect of the first one, and then that has side effects, and then you're all of a sudden you're taking, dozens of things, and you don't even know, you don't know what your baseline is, and you're not testing anything along the way. So I think it's really, really important to have a vetting system of trusted products and services that you can actually see, what should I be doing for this specific outcome.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the information age, so now everyone has all this information and access to all these tools, which used to be such a private sector and like really expensive, honestly, to get into. And now we all have access, and so it really is studying what works. And like a lot of our work is to go back into science and nature, and then identify the ways in which humans perform optimally, and then bring those things closer to us, so that we don't so that we can live an abundant life. Like literally I keep going back to it in every podcast that I've been on recently. I'm like, I called my company this because it's a constant reminder that like happiness is a true choice. And it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, like to feel bad, or because, if like you have an injury or something bad happens to you, that's when you get like the most likes, and like that's when people care about you. And so it's like it's cool to be in circles, Michael, like we are, where people celebrate when you win, and it's like really encouraged. Like, come on, dude, like how do you add a zero to that number? Like stop playing small. Like we're here to literally grab life big, which is the ethos of a group that we're a part of called GoBundance. And so, these types of groups and communities is how we are going to grow together. I've taken a huge step back from, social and digital media because I'm really focused on building my family. And I really do believe that quantity is more important than quality, especially with super young kids. Like your kids will remember how much you were actually there for with them. They're not going to really remember the quality when they're young, young, young. So I'm super focused, and I've said no to so many amazing things. By the way, that like that would have been just legendary trips, like Ritz Carlton yachts and speaking engagements overseas, and it's all because I just like nothing is more important than being there with there for my kids. And so I'm sharing all this because it may seem very busy and you're like, Brett, how do you do all of it? It's called stacking. And so it's not actually adding more, but it's how can do what I'm doing right now. But like right now you can't see it, but I'm actually breathing in uh exclusion zone water, which is the fourth phase of water, which is a vapor. And so I'm actually like drinking water and talking at the same time and hydrating. And so these are simple tools and modalities and practices that you can integrate in your life. You just probably don't know how or never heard of them. And that's where I come in, and I teach you about, and I unlock and untap um things from like really hidden places, and I bring light and exposure to them. And that's kind of been my passion. So
You're hitting on an interesting, it's not a paradox, but stacking could be interpreted as multitasking. And you're also saying that you're doing less, like, I think doing things to bring more presence, to be more present, right? I mean, hopefully you're that maybe I'm
well,
just
I look
imposing.
at yeah, I mean, to touch on that real quick, I look at like multitasking as like a scatter plot, or
Yeah.
like this, like wide, and I look at stacking like laser focus, like, oh, if I just take these supplements at this time, like my whole day is going to be better. Or if I just get this light right at this time, like when I first wake up, then my sleep that evening is going to be much much better. That's an important thing. I focus a lot on frequency medicine because we are at the end of the day light beings, and we absorb energy whether it's good or bad. And so the light that you get first thing in the morning makes the biggest impact on your overall health because it'll determine how you sleep that night, and how you sleep determines the quality of your health. So it's like literally all connected. And so it's really important to, know simple fundamental principles of nature and science. Like when the sun goes down, so should your lights. So, we got to have a little bit of fun with it too. I think a lot of people in the industry take it too seriously. And so, once again, I just like bridging that gap. And just, I'm also grateful for doctors like you, Michael, who like actually see that there's more than one option. Critical thinking and curiosity are things that like will keep us young forever. And as long as doctors are willing to like open their minds, I'm willing to teach and lead the way when it comes to, functional, preventative. I don't like the word medicine, just tools, tools to live
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's one of the things that unfortunately, even in the circles I'm in, is a little bit unique, that I draw from, Taoist traditions, Chinese medicine, and conventional medicine, and yoga, and CrossFit, and these things that are kind of polarized, but it's really, in my mind, like yin and yang. I mean, they're complementary, like masculine and feminine. And if you over index too far on one side, you're out of balance, and so it has to be this balance between the two. And that is a great segue into what I actually was thinking next, that the other thing that's in balance is your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, right? And if you were parasympathetic all the time, you'd just be in a coma, basically. And if you were sympathetic all the time, you'd be like many of the guys we know, who are just, type A, like it's so intense, it's hard to be around, And so one of the things we talk about a lot is getting in that flow state, and, regulating your nervous system. And I think it's tied a little bit back to what we were talking about before about being our kids. And so tying in a bunch of things here, that I was just at a meeting yesterday where there was a guy talking about not being able to be present. He's very, very aware that when he's with his kids, he's not really there. He's not present, and didn't know how to solve that. And so I think these things are somewhat related. And, I don't know if he's just really, really stressed, or he's thinking about work, but he's not able to unplug and be in the present. And I think to live a happy life, that in my mind is essential. Like you can't just walk through life being distracted or, head in the clouds all the time.
Yeah, to touch on that, I think arguably one of the most important things in terms of whole health, I believe that health equals wholeness. Like if you're, dealing with something in your body, it's connected to every part of your body. So like you need to address the whole thing. And I say that because nervous system regulation is arguably the most important thing that I work on with people is making sure people are living in the balance and the yin and the yang and they know how to tap in and out whenever they want to, especially with like all the alpha hard charging kind of people that I tend to attract into my life. They're always wanting more and more and more. I'm like, less, 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 less equals more and discipline equals freedom. And so if we can focus on the fundamental practices of how we can get your cellular health optimized, then your muscles will look bigger, your skin will look tighter, like whatever you're looking, whatever you're looking to do will happen because we're taking care of you on a cellular level. There's even science now out that's pointing to that. Like if your nervous system is not regulated when you consume like when you're eating basically, that your body actually doesn't even know what to do with it because it's actually worried about something else and operating in a system. And just check this for a sec. If you've eaten and you're just like powered down a meal, like subconsciously, like has that meal actually fulfilled you? Probably not. You get full and then you feel like crap because you're like your body, you don't give your body a chance to catch up to the sensations that it's experiencing. And so we've all done it, but it's just something to keep in mind. Like if your system's not regulated, all those fancy vitamins and the stacks that you're taking on like really don't matter. And I'll also say we live in such a hyper connected world that our phones are like at this point considered bioweapons. And I say that because there's a screen technology, you guys can research it yourself, but there's actually a frequency technology that was patented by a guy a long, long time ago that runs in the background of every screen. Like it's a frequency, and that frequency is actually very addictive. And so it doesn't even matter what you're looking at on your screen. If you're looking at your screen, it's pulling you into this world, right? Which is not in this world. And so, we as Tony says, like we were not made to live in a box, to drive in a box, to be on a box call. Like we weren't designed to be in boxes. We need to break it up and be out in nature. And that's, people are always looking for all these cool tips and tools on biohacking. I said, honestly, less is more. Get yourself outside, touch the earth, drink clean, filtered, structured water, and breathe clean air. And if you can start there, you're gonna see transformation happen in less than a week. Huge.
Yeah. And I'm particularly I have a 3-year-old and another one on the way, and, I think, I was just talking to Heather earlier this week about we were traveling in a car with another family, and they were playing music that we don't generally play. It was kids' music that we don't generally play, and toys and anything on a screen and music and anything designed for kids these days is like it's like going to a rave, you
Yeah.
have the lights and the changing, things and the music is like pounding, and it's like I think of when we were growing up, and we're not exactly the same age, but in that era, things were more calm, like it was like Mister Rogers and Sesame Street, it wasn't like
Yes.
Coco Melon and Bluey and the whatever that's just like intense, it was more like going to a library than it was like going to a rave, and I'm just really concerned about what that looks like, regardless of the frequency, the number of times per day or per week or whatever they're exposed to that, just when that becomes the baseline, because I think it is very contagious and addictive that, the more you're exposed to this, the less you're content out in nature, and so I think it's a slippery slope that it kind of inoculates us to something that we shouldn't be immune to, this overstimulation.
Yeah. When it comes down to it, it's dangerous because we as humans don't really remember what happens to us. We remember how we feel. And so when you're a kid and you're being programmed by these over sensory experiences, then that becomes your normal. And then so you're like as you grow up, you're always seeking, that next level of like chaos basically. And then chaos becomes normal and like nobody has ever said that's a good thing. So It goes back to honestly studying patterns that work, and the first human pattern that was recognized that kept us alive longer was seasons. Oh my gosh, if we grow things now, they're not gonna live, and then if they don't live, then we can't eat, and we're gonna die. So we gotta, as humans, understand the seasons of life, seasons of change, and then what things work and what things don't. And I say that because, like, maybe you're trying a supplement or trying like a type of therapy or whatever. Name your thing that you want to try out. Like, just try it. Don't like bet your life on it, but trust, but verify if you hear about something that you want to try for your system, and then guess what? If it doesn't work or you don't feel anything, try it a little bit longer because it could take time, and then ditch it if it doesn't work. I mean, we've literally been 3,000 products we've reviewed and over now, and we only have 100 of companies inside of our portfolio. So like we are tenacious when it comes to saying no to people. And one of probably my top five favorite things, probably top three actually, is a company called Lila Quantum, and they are a quantum energy company, and they make capsules that you can wear to protect your biofield, and they also make units that structure whatever goes inside of them, and so you can see them at Sun Life Organics, for example. I wear mine every day, and just because it harmonizes the frequencies that are around you. And then they have an advanced feature, which actually is called the quantum upgrade. And you can actually set your frequency remotely. And you're like, how's that possible? Well, based on your birthday and where you were born and all these other variables, you're in this quantum grid that's invisible. And so knowing that you're a node in a grid, and when you say the word quantum energy, it means the energy behind matter. Okay, quantum energy is the energy behind matter. So if we can pinpoint what that is, then you can actually set whatever frequency you want beaming to you, to your biofield throughout the day. You can also do it to geographic locations based on their coordinates. So very advanced stuff, but it's really simple because if you think about it, if you drink water that's not structured, your body's not going to really absorb it. And you know that because, like, probably when you're drinking out of a plastic water bottle because you had to one time playing sports, you might have had like this gludgy feeling in your gut. It's because you're, one, the microplastics, and two, the water's dead, so your body doesn't know what to do with it. It's like, what is this? And so it just stays in there until it finally clears through. And so you're not actually hydrating. And so with structured water, for instance, you drink like half as much and you're more hydrated. These are just examples that I'm just sharing with people so they can kind of wrap their head around these bigger ideology and like get curious as to what it looks like to take it to the next step. And then obviously breathing exclusion zone water, or also known as easy water, that's like the most ultimate phase because you're breathing water vapor that's structured and that's triggering biological responses, more oxygen, more energy. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease, all those good things. So
Yeah, awesome. What do you feel like are the 2 or 3 most important things that people overlook about their health?
yeah, it definitely would be air, water, and energy. So frequency, so light, all kind of the same thing, right? So because if we live in spaces, and this is the number one offer that we have at Happy Life Labs, which is called Space Optimization Audit. So we come into your home or office space and we do tests on the water, the air, whether there's mold or not, and then EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, and we determine like if your state's red, yellow, or green. And if you're living in a red state, but you're still doing okay, like, wouldn't you want to know like that you're breathing in toxic air possibly? So air is important because we use a tool called the Jasper Air Scrubber, and so well, here's the science: like either you filter the air that you're breathing through your lungs, which is fine, very inefficient, or you let the air scrubber filter the air that you're breathing. And so you can see by drinking that, consuming fresh, clean air. And if you live in like a mountainous state or where there's not, I live in Houston, so we have like some of the worst air and water. And this is like one of the reasons why I'm so serious about it. We have air filter in literally every room in our house, and ozone in our HVAC, and also UV lighting. So like we are. I'm not. I am a student of my own teachings, by the way. And then water, you people are like, oh yeah, I filter water, or I have reverse osmosis. There's another step to the process. So yes, of course, you want to drink clean, filtered water. Then what we want to do is remineralize or structure the water. You don't have to mineralize it like in the water as it's coming out, but definitely you'd want to add salt or anything, because if you're just drinking water that's dead and not structured, literally, if you look at it in a magnifying glass, it's nothing. It's a fluid. And so when it's structured though, however, then your body can actually absorb the oxygen out of the H2O, right? And so when you have more hydrogen in your system, then your body can absorb the oxygen. So water and then light frequencies, because like your light, the frequency of light that you're around the most will determine like I said, the outcome of your sleep. And so, and vice versa. If you need to stay awake and like be in a state that requires your energy, like you can turn on different light frequencies that'll take you to a new space. There's also really cool tools like in that space, like one's called the Roxiva, that'll like do different light patterns on your brain. And it's like you have your eyes closed, but you can see these patterns happening. And it's almost like you're doing like a drug because it's decalcifying, and, like your pineal gland, allowing you to see things that are not real, and so it takes you deeper into your mind and you can meditate in that state and go to places that you've never gone without doing medicine. So that's how you know it's real. And then my favorite would be like a sauna space, full spectrum near infrared light. For that to me is that is the number one product in our portfolio because our kids were born under it. It helped heal my own brain. Like it's used in every practice that I recommend. It's the first light you should see when you wake up and the last light you should see when you go to sleep. It's the same energy of the sun when it's that glowing sun, or like when a slow burning coal fire, when you're like, man, I feel really calm and peaceful. Well, there's a reason, because you're having a cellular response, and the scientific phenomenon is called mirrored neuron theory. And so when you have that, you're mirroring neurons and you're associating with whatever light frequency that is in front of you, and you're absorbing it, and so it will change your energetic state. And the quality of your life is based on the energetic state that you live the most in. So that's like the full picture in like under 5 minutes.
Love it. The other vantage point I wanted to get to is what are some things that people get right and wrong about some of these topics. You're talking about some biohacking things. I think a couple years ago, you could identify a quote unquote biohacker because they were walking around 24/7 wearing uh, blue light glasses, right? Which I'm pretty sure we both probably have within reach.
Oh yeah. Yep. Needs to be sliding on for the rest of the day in a couple hours.
But you bring up a good point that the red light is basically mimicking natural light. Right. And there is benefit to being out in the sun and not having these glasses on. Right. And so even though it's become, there's lots of memes and videos and things mocking biohackers for wearing, the ridiculous things that some people take to an extreme. But at the end of the day, there's a time and place for all of these things. But a lot of times it's not that maybe the why isn't understood or there's misunderstandings, right? And I mean, I think we both agree and most people in our space agree that, you know, there's been an over indexing on sauna and cold plunging and all of these have benefit. But if you're not doing the fundamental things or you're doing sauna 5 times a day or, 30-minute cold plunges or these kinds of things, which some people think, if a little is good, then more is better. So I'd love, to dive into that a bit and just, whether it's misapplication or it's just mistiming or all of these things matter. And I think we lose that. It's not nuance or minutia. It's like the fundamentals that get just
Yeah.
skipped over and like Brett's doing that. I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to do it all the time. And I'm going to do it 5 times as much. And I'm going to get super, super healthy and live to 200 years old. It's like, no, you're not
Oh
going to
my
do it.
god. Yes. Yeah, you're really speaking my language now. There, like you said something like, so the first and foremost thing that you can do that'll save your life is not judge or compare yourself to anybody else and what they're using, because someone might only be able to afford that $100 red light, and there's no harm, no foul. At least they're trying, right? Now, the effectiveness of the tools and the bioavailability, meaning how much your body actually gets, whether it is light or a supplement or cold plunge, is determined by your unique biology, right? A lot of times, as humans, we have a certain set of codes and frequencies that we're all related on, which is Schumann resonance, which is the heartbeat of the earth, because we're all here, we're connected. If we weren't, we'd be dead. And so we can study those laws and then what applies to us specifically. My thing is like our brains are actually not designed to think. I'll say it again. Our brains were not designed to think. They were designed to listen. And this is a really kind of like aha moment that I want you to hear, because if you understand the truth about that, then it's like, oh yeah, if I'm thinking about things, like, I'm actually in my head and then not in my heart and in my body. And when you're not in your body, then you have a hard time living because we're innately intelligent. We were created perfect by God, and so we actually know exactly what's for us and what's not, right? And so that's why I start to lead with that because it can be applied to anything. Like a red light, you know immediately if that light is too powerful, the wrong frequency, etc. Or if you get in front of a sauna space, you're like, I could spend a lot of time here. And almost to the point where you have to limit yourself because you will. Because it just feels so good, right? And if you can see a hue, that is a sauna space on me, by the way. So that's something. Quality matters. Don't take shortcuts. It's the age old proverb like, if you think hiring a professional is expensive, wait until you hire an amateur. Same thing with these products. You'll just end up buying another sauna. I cannot tell you, we sold thousands of saunas over the years. How many people have thanked me by like, forcing them to buy the more expensive sauna? I'm like, hey, like, I'm not saying this because of my commissions. I'm saying this because you're gonna love this thing. You're gonna heal yourself. This is gonna become like the temple of your home, the nucleus of your home. Like you like literally go home early from a social event to get a sauna in, etc. So just get the one that you want, even if it's more expensive. Finance it. It is like so. There's certain corners not to cut. Same thing with glasses. Like these are not all the same. There's very specific technology and that's patented that go into these glasses. So all these companies that are in our portfolio are like we test and check for all that kind of science to make sure that they're withholding to their promises. Yeah, that's that. Like people trust people blindly. Mark Hyman, like okay, cool. Ask about Mark Hyman's kids and their status of their health. Should be taking care of his own family first. Not to call people out, but Peter Attia, like 1,700 times in the Epstein files. Like so, it's like be really cognizant and careful who you look up to and trust. You also be like shocked this huge wave of wellness now and the amount of money that's pouring into it, like $6.9 trillion, by the way. And like now all of a sudden, all these like wealthier, older men are becoming wellness health experts when they had no space in this business at all. So like actually like look at the person you're doing business with and like, do they look healthy? Are they living a happy life? Like, would you take advice from them? If they're not like your picture of what health could look like or should look like, or there's like you're impressed, like just same thing with a coach. Don't hire them. You don't have to listen to what they have to say. That's totally fine. And so I would encourage you guys to really do your due diligence and look at people that inspire you. I like radical thinkers like Dave Asprey. People, he triggers a lot of people and he's really bold, but I just he has fun with his life and he doesn't really care what other people say. And he's on an epic mission to like untap uncommon truths. Like one big one recently is like nicotine, because we have it made up in our heads. Nicotine's bad because of cigarettes. And like nicotine is actually incredible when it's administered properly. So these are all things that you just got to be thinking about and that are like everything. The problem is everything is available to us in today's world. Like, and it's so easy. Think back even 10 years ago, like, or pre Amazon days, hard to even imagine. Like when you actually had to like go to websites individually and like buy things or go to a store. And so that world doesn't exist like really anymore. And so it gets really easy to just buy something and return it if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up a couple things I want to hit on. Earlier, you were talking about the seasonality. And I think, when you talk about not 10 years ago, but 20 or 30 years ago, you couldn't go in a grocery store and eat the same things, buy the same things every day. There was a seasonality to it. And the things that are coming from Chile or Brazil or whatever are not going to be as nutritious as the things that are coming from down the street if you live in a place where there's farms nearby, like in California or whatever, or even in the States, right? They're picked before they're ripe, they're shipped a long way. And you're not going to notice on the outside, you're not going to notice even by taste necessarily. Sometimes you do, especially with like fruits and vegetables and things like that. But there's the quality of the nutrients in those foods is tremendously different.
We might as well do a whole nother episode on food because there's this like, hey, guess what? Guess what the most unhealthy meat for you is now? Grass-fed beef. Why? Because they're feeding the cows with grass that's grown with glyphosates. The glyphosate grows the muscle. You eat the muscle. You are subtly poisoning yourself. Interesting. Eggs in the grocery store. Guess how old they are? 6 to 9 weeks at the minimum before you even begin to eat them. So if you're not like, and the nutrient profile from what time of harvest to like that is on the package that they say to the time you eat them is very different. And so, yeah, like you said, even like in the vegetables and the produce, they harvest them, they pre-harvest them basically, and then in the stores, when you're seeing them, like, oh, those are fresh, they're actually spraying them with chemicals to keep them fresh longer because it's expensive, actually. So I either get it we try to get it fresh or we get it frozen. Frozen food is incredible because it actually locks in.
Yeah.
If you're getting organic, at least it locks it in, and it's not it doesn't have to like travel a whole bunch, like and then like exposed to other environmental toxins. By the time you're eating it, it's not organic anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, you bring up an interesting thing when you were talking about buying something, like not going cheap. I think there's a sweet spot. I always say this, I'm an avid cyclist, and whenever someone's trying to buy a bike for the first time, I'm doing an adventure race in a few weeks, and there's a bunch of guys who don't have a bike. And so they're asking me like, what kind of bike should I buy? And I always say, especially this time of year, at the beginning of the year, try to find a deal on last year's bike that's, the one that's still hanging around and the shop wants to get rid of it, and buy a bike that's like, if your budget's, let's say, $2,000, which it sounds like a lot for a bike to some people, but it's on the lower end, right? Like, find a $2,000 retail bike and pay 1,000, 1,200, something like that, right? And then if you don't like it, sell it for what you paid for it. Right. And or a little bit less, and you've rented a great bike, a $2,000 bike for two or three hundred, $500 for whatever duration you had it for. But if you pay $1,200 for a $1,200 bike, nobody wants a used $1,200 bike, so you're stuck with it, right?
That's right. That's
But
right.
you don't need an $8,000, $10,000 bike. There's a sweet spot where that's where it should be. And I think with food and with supplements and with other things, the same is true. You're not necessarily buying more, you're not getting more by paying more in some things. It's just superfluous, like bells and whistles that you're never going to use. But all that to say, the question is, outside of your company, what are some trusted sources people can go to know in this, world full of noise? How do you know what you should follow? How do you know what you should listen to? How do you know what to pay attention to? Because it's just overwhelming, and AI just makes it more confusing if you don't have the critical thinking and whatnot to be able to get through all of that. It doesn't try to give you a direct answer. It tries to keep the conversation going.
Mhm.
Right. And so if you said, for example, how do I improve my VO2 max? It's going to give you 6 ways to do it. Or how do I test my VO2 max? It's going to give you 5 ways to do it. And they're not all equal. Right. But when it's presented to you, it's like, oh, these are all viable options. And so that's the downside, I think, to AI, is that it wants to keep you coming. It wants to keep you addicted, like everything else, right? It wants to keep the conversation going. It wants to keep you coming back, and that, I think, just adds to more of the noise.
I'm thankfully don't have another answer because we take great pride in knowing that we have created a business that's not like I literally couldn't find this business, so I created it because I would go to all these conferences. And I'm like, well, that was confusing. Someone was selling candy with corn syrup, like, but it's has probiotics. And then like I was over at this other booth doing a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and there's 8 salt companies. Like, well, what do I start? What do I do? So I created like that. I created the demand. I created like the place where people could go and be like, hey, if it's in this portfolio, like it's good. And then I would say, like, if you want to know why it's good for you, then ask, like that's what it's all about. It's genuine curiosity that keeps us young. And the truth is we're all here to walk each other home. I think we know a lot of answers, but even, the best doctors in the world can't explain things. And so I would suggest giving your trust to God or your higher power and letting them run the show. And then just being like a curious kid and finding new cool tools and technologies and, things that you can bring into your world to make it a better place. And sometimes those things, all they do is make you happier. That's moving the needle on longevity, by the way, is by bringing you happiness. Some of the most radical tools that I have in my portfolio are like just tools that I look at or that like they're effective, but I get more, they bring me joy just by seeing them.
Yeah. I was just talking to Matt King yesterday, and he mentioned return on joy, which we don't talk about a lot. I love that. So, around happiness, what do you think are the two or three things that most get overlooked? And I think for me, I'll just say one of the things that, if I'm having a down moment or down day, I pull out my phone and I have my 3-year-old son there, and he just has that beginner's mind and that curiosity, and he's happy 90% of the time, which I think lucky not every kid is. But, my son is a big source of joy for me, and I think your kids are also a big source of joy for you. But what else do you think we overlook that would be maybe easy thing? What are some hacks for happiness?
Yeah, understand like gratitude. Gratitude is a legitimate practice, and, I say that because, like, even me, someone that's super happy most of the time, I have to, like, practice gratitude because I go, "Oh my gosh, that's gonna be hard," or, "Oh, I have all these things that I have to do." No, 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 I get to do them, right? I get to do these things. They are gonna be hard. It's okay. I'm doing them so that I get more time with my kids, et cetera, et cetera. So gratitude is a practice. You gotta do it. I mean, I would just download the free 5-minute journal app on your phone and just get after it and just write down every single morning. It gives you a prompt. It's 3 questions. It's literally less than 5 minutes. It'll change your life, and that happiness is a choice. Like, you can be tired, but you can choose happiness, right? Like, I didn't sleep much last night, but I'm still like, okay, we got a full day here. Let's go. I'm going to choose to be happy. I'm going to choose joy because that's what I want to be remembered for. And so those are some fundamental, easy, and like start where you're at. Like you don't have to like have, you know, everything. Just like it took me 13 years to have, like all the stuff that I have. And, like in our personal space, we have a $500,000 worth of longevity tools. It's almost embarrassing at some point. So it's just takes time and just start with one thing and start adapting. And the key too, though, that I've found the most happiness in is finding communities that are like also like just passionately curious. So that's why I like to go to these conferences more than anything. It's because 'cause you're, like, meeting people that are also passionately curious about things. And by the way, if you ever hear anybody, like, talking smack or, like, downing another product, like, there's a lot of products that I will never recommend and I do not like, and the people are trash, but you won't hear me talk about them ever. You just won't see 'em in my portfolio, like, and so, it's just kindness, dude, the world's crazy, especially right now, so kindness goes a real long way, especially, like, someone design these and, like put their life into building these products and tools. And so I don't take it lightly and I give people a lot of credit for what they're committed to delivering. And our deliverable seems to be happiness. And we just gonna continue going down that path until it becomes impossible.
I love it. You said something along the lines of what you want to be known for, and that brings to mind words I have here on my notes of like purpose and success that are thrown around as buzzwords in a different way than they were even decades ago. But I think sometimes they're like on either end of a spectrum, right? And like, some people believe you can't fulfill your purpose and be quote unquote successful if you define success as by monetary alone. I don't believe that at all because I have lots of examples of people in my life who have found their purpose and achieved great success by every metric. But I wonder around those two topics, what are some things that you feel like get overlooked?
I mean, I've heard this and I just kind of like embodied it, but the success without fulfillment is failure. Meaning, if you don't feel fulfilled when you get the thing that you've worked so hard for, then you like it was either given to you or you didn't feel the pain in the process, or if it didn't bring you pleasure or joy, like you really missed out on kind of the whole point. And I think that it's important for people to identify success as is just a gap. It's a constant gap, and you're like you're either going for it or you're not, and it's not. It's like not a success is not a destination. So like, okay, I got the Porsche or I got the house or the kid or the wife or name the thing, the job. It's not that you get it. It's like who you have to become in that process. And like, if we want to become someone that we're not, like I say, is that arrival requires departure. You must literally depart your old self. And as Tony would say, got to burn the boats if you want to own the island.
Yeah, I was having a conversation a few years ago with a friend of mine about skill acquisition. Two things I'd like to have, which I just haven't put the time into. I could do both. Is become fluent in Spanish and become basically fluent on the guitar. And the question was whether do you have anything like that you wish like you just you could if you put the time in that you'd like to do. What is something?
Yeah, I took professional lessons, I tried everything. I tried to get good at the guitar because I love Dave Matthews, and I was I literally tried so hard, and it never worked out. And then there was also, like, a license that I was trying to get that never worked out, and so I just, like, was like, "Maybe I'm just not supposed to do that." It wasn't that I gave up, it was that I truly surrendered, you know?
Yeah.
That's when God said, that didn't work out because you're supposed to be over here."
Yeah.
And so,
I
yeah,
because it's kind of an interesting thought exercise I had a few years back that, like, if I could just snap my fingers and have that superpower, and that's not a superpower, but have that ability, I would choose to just I don't need the process to acquire that skill. I mean, I do. Because there is no snapping your fingers and just acquiring that skill. But if that was a thing, right? If there's a genie that could just grant that wish, but I get maybe that's different from maybe skill acquisition is different from success. But I would deem that a success if I became, fluent in this thing. And I think there's probably categorically two types of people: those who would just choose the destination and those who choose the journey. And in most things, I choose the journey, but there's a couple things that if I could just have them overnight, wake up tomorrow and I could just play the guitar and speak in Spanish, maybe I could serenade in Spanish as well. I'd choose to have that versus not having it without the journey.
yeah. Well, as they say, vision plus action equals your mission. And so most people are either missing their vision, like they don't even actually know what they want, or they're missing the action. And so it's really easy to identify which one you're missing because, like, I'm a visionary. So I think about a lot of things. And it's like, what am I going to put into action? Because that's what equals your mission. And your mission in life should be really clear. So there's a lot of confusion about that because, like, if I was going to ask you, Michael, like, if you, if all your success went away, who would you be? You'd be like, "Wow, I haven't thought about it." Well, maybe you should, right? Maybe we should think about who we would be if we weren't, if we didn't have all the things that we had. Like, would people actually still love us and care about us and, cheer us on? So I look at life in a from a holistic perspective. I've been in a lot of different industries and 56 countries traveled now, and just like I said, I am just passionately curious about becoming the best, continuing to be the constant and never-ending improvement, the canny principle. And so I know that a lot of people can relate to that. And if you're not like that and you're just content with life, like that's fine too. Like I have a lot of people that I grew up with that are just like totally content with life, and I'm like, that's great. I literally can't do that. Like I can't just take a job and then like retire someday and like life is good. Like
Yeah.
like literally can't even talk about it. It makes me go crazy. So
Yeah. I grabbed a piece of paper that I had close to my desk here that was just about a month ago. For some reason, it crossed my mind, similar to what you just asked. What would my regrets be if I died tomorrow? I don't know why. It's not in a morbid way of just like refocusing, like what are my priorities? And top of the list is not being present with my son and wife.
most people most dads, that's it. Like, and if it's not, then you should really have a hard conversation with yourself about what that looks like if you don't like being around your family. Cause we're made to co-create. And so it's a
Yeah.
pretty important thing to get to tap into.
And then the second thing is not spending more money to make memories. To taking the trips and doing the things because I tend to be more on the frugal side than the overspending side. And, I think ultimately there's gonna be some time when I'm gonna regret not spending that money, but what good is it? At some point it's like, what is it for? And so, time is our number one resource that we can't buy more of. But if we have the money to spend, why not use it to but specifically to make memories, right? Not to acquire more stuff or anything like that. It's not about having more, it's about doing more. So
That's it.
those are and then the third thing on the list is not getting outside more.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think a body of work that's really important to tap into is core value work. And I'm not going to unpack it here because we're kind of out of time. Core value work would be identifying the things that are not going to change about you from now until you're dead. So those are the values that no matter what, you will not break them. And they can change and they can adapt and evolve, especially with like you have a family or a new relationship or a new career, had a profound breakthrough with your trauma healing. Like they can absolutely change. But what is like quite literally not going to change about you. You know, faith is important to me, so it's obviously one of my core values. Like I live my life through God. And so when people are like, "How'd you do that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just said I prayed and I channeled God's energy through me to deliver what I think, was that to bring people closer to him. When I say him, like source, energy, feeling, enlightenment, like human, like we're designed to feel." And so anyway, I've really enjoyed this, Michael, and if there's any way that I can be a resource to you and your network, I'd be happy to continue to tap in.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I have one last question for you. I have this book that I keep going back to that's called The Great Work of Your Life, A Guide for the Journey to a True Calling. And it just brings to mind all the time kind of a definition of success. What I love the phrase "a life well lived." And if if I were to be known for something like it, my obituary or whatever, I'd love for someone to say, Michael was Heather and Bennett were the center of his world, and he lived a life well lived, and everyone would know what that means if they know me.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yes.
just curious, Brett, what does a life well lived mean to you?
Man, you put me on the spot. Yours is so good. I mean, live happy is our mantra. So I would love for people to say that it was one happy dude and he gave it his all and he tried his best and he never gave up, which I think is, resilience is a thing that we need to continue to practice, doing hard things on purpose, which you and I are aligned on. And so humans are amazing, man. We just shoot ourselves in the feet by trying to take the shortcuts, and it's just enjoy the journey and tap in and discover like what lights you up in life and pursue that boldly.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Brett, for joining me today. Where can people find you other than Happy Life Labs, or is that the best place?
I'm on all the social sites, so LinkedIn, Instagram, just Brett Harmeling, my name, and we can connect there. If you found something valuable or you have a question about growing through whatever you're going through, just reach out and I'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts?
That's it.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for spending time with me today. Seriously, there are a lot of voices out there, and I don't take it lightly that you chose this one. If today's episode was useful, leave a review, share it with someone in your circle, and come find me at factfueledfitness.com. A clarity call is just 15 minutes, and it might change the next decade. I'm Dr. Michael Donovan, and this has been Fact Fueled Fitness. The work doesn't stop here, it starts here.